What's up, horror community? I'm Stock, and in today's video, we're doing a little bit of a repeat because once again, I am ranking the Scream franchise. And I know I literally just did this video less than half a year ago. I did it 5 months ago in October, but I'm doing it again. But there's a couple reasons to that. Reason number one being, of course, there is a new Scream movie out. It literally just dropped a week ago today from when I'm filming this video. So you have a lot of Scream vibes in the air. Everybody's talking about Scream, whether you loved Scream 6 or you hated it. Everybody's talking about it. Second of all, I would love to see where this new movie factors in with the other 5 films that I've seen and that I love. So I want to see where 6 can kind of place up against those ones. And then 3, it's a personal reason for me. When I last ranked this series, which was only 5 months ago, like I said, a lot has changed since then. Because in that video, that was one of the first videos I did by myself as a single video of just me. Because normally in the first few videos we published, it was me and Pooh, but he's been busy doing his own stuff right now, which he will come back. But last time I ranked Scream was one of the first times I was by myself. So it wasn't the version of me that I am now. So it's something I want to rewrite for me personally and just talk about Scream in a different light than I did 5 months ago in that video. So very personal, but of course I love talking about Scream. I never get tired of it. So doing this video again also doesn't bother me. Something I'm so passionate about, something I love so much. But let's get into it. These are all good movies. Scream is a freaking flawless horror franchise. It is so hard to have all good movies, 6 movies into a franchise. If you look at all the other horror franchises, like, you cannot say that for them. So it's very impressive. It's very hard to rank also, which I love ranking, and it's something that could always change for me, or it could always change around. It could always be different. But let's talk about where I'm at currently, ranking in at number 6. Ranking in at number 6 is Scream 4. Yes, ranking in last place is Scream 4 for me, but I gotta talk about the positives of this movie, leading off with the fact of how different it felt. And I gotta say, it separated itself a lot from the first 3 movies. Right off the bat, you had a giant time jump. So you had a 10-year time jump from Scream 3 to Scream 4. And you felt that. You definitely felt that through the screen. Just by the vibe of the movie, of seeing like a modern Scream world movie, which was crazy. But also just where Dewey, Sidney, and Gale were at in life during Scream 4, 10 years after the 3 crazy things they went through. You really felt that, where they were in life. I thought they did an awesome job at doing that. Another thing I credit massively with Scream 4 is their Ghostface killer, which is one of the biggest aspects of a Scream movie. I thought 4 had one of the critically best killers in all of Scream with Jill, and she was an awesome killer. Something I credit her massively on is her family ties with Sidney. Like, it was very believable for me. Like, when she turned on her and her motive and like the family bond those two had, I believed the freaking hell out of it. I didn't believe that whatsoever in Scream 3 with Sidney and Roman. Like, I didn't buy their family connection the way I did with Jill and Sidney in 4. So that was awesome. One of the most unexpected killers too for me, which was great. But Charlie, he was the other Ghostface killer in 4. He's very, very low tier for me. He was my lowest tiered Ghostface killer when I ranked 1 through 5 for Ghostface killers, not factoring 6. But he was my lowest. Like, he's okay. He gets the job done as a sidekick to Jill, but he's a bit of a drag to why Scream 4 is in last place for me. But Jill, freaking fantastic. One of the best killers, but even her build-up throughout the movie, like I said, it's very believable of her being that family member to Sidney. And then how nuts she goes and reveal is, oh man, that's some stellar stuff. The way she goes crazy, the way she beats herself up and all that kind of stuff. And then the whole tension you get in the hospital scene at the end. And like I said, her motive being super strong, like, that's a massive, massive up for Scream 4. This is just a ranking, so I'm not going to review the whole movie. I'm just going to go through some key points, and now I'll just name a couple negatives I had. So those were some great positives, but a couple negatives I have with it is the new cast of characters they had in 4, like the people you're supposed to feel like, you know, this new group of friends or whatever, these connections. I didn't really feel it with most. Like I said, I thought Jill was amazing. I liked Kirby too, who returned in 6, but besides that, it's really the other characters they introduced here I don't really care about. I mean, Judy was pretty good. She wasn't bad either. She came back in 5. She was pretty good too. But a lot of the other ones I could care less about. I never think about them. I forget like all of their names. Just they kind of just happen. I don't think of them whatsoever. So that's a little bit of a downfall. And then also Scream 4 for me is the least entertaining one, I think. I think the movie drags more than any other Scream movie I've watched. Not that it drags, because it doesn't, because I have to keep stressing this. I love all the Scream movies, but if I had to pick and why it's last place for me, I think it drags the most. I don't know, just the least entertaining one to me personally. So that's another reason why it's in last place. But this movie is still great. I could definitely still always watch it. I definitely have so many aspects about it I love. I even love like the Ghostface in Mask. Like he's a much different step up than the other Ghostfaces in Mask, because how brutal he was and stuff like that, and how crazy and gory his kills were. Especially that one scene with the neighbor, and he freaking destroys that girl, and like there's blood all over the room, like it testing. Like that was nuts for Scream. That's a crazy visual. I know they kind of did in the Scream opening, but man, not to that extent. Like that was a crazy one. Now I got a negative too, so I'm just feeling this on the spot. Scream 4's opening. I didn't really like Scream 4's opening. It's easily my least favorite one in any of the Screams. So also a weak opening, but there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of love I have for it too, of course, but the negatives and everything else, it just brings us to my number 6 spot. Ranking in at number 5. This is a tough one. It could literally change like whenever, but right now, I think I'm gonna have to go with Scream 3. So I'm gonna rank Scream 3 next. For most people, this is the lowest movie in the franchise, but I see a lot of charm in this movie. I have a lot of love for it. First, right off the bat, I'll talk about my positives for it. First of all, I love the opening. I love Scream 3's opening. Like the whole Cotton stuff, the Cotton Weary fight with Ghostface. I love the hell out of this stuff. Also because right off the bat, you kill a main character that you built up a little bit in Scream 1, like his foundation of who he was, you heard about him. Scream 2, he really gets an awesome arc. Literally saves the day in Scream 2, and he gets a nice happy ending. And then you open it up with Scream 3 of him getting killed off after he gets all that success of like 100% Cotton and all that kind of stuff. I literally love that opening so much. Like the difference it has, the different vibe it has than the other openings, the intenseness, the main character on the line in that, seeing Ghostface get him, the tension also with his Cotton's like girlfriend or wife or whatever not believing him. All that stuff's great. Also, you introduce in that opening the Ghostface voice changer, which is also fantastic. What a difference. I love the voice changer. I think that really makes that Ghostface in Mask stand out against others. So yes, I love the voice changing stuff. I think that really brings a lot of possibilities of what you could do there, and like how like much harder it is to fight this Ghostface, because you can disguise yourself as anybody. So it makes the challenge much harder than the first 2 movies in a lot of ways. So I love that. And I love the fact that there's one killer in this one. I've always wanted them to do that again since Scream 3, but they haven't. And I love the fact of one killer. I absolutely love that. I can't talk about it more in detail yet because that's more on the negative side for me. But the fact of having one killer, I love. I gotta say is a key positive in this movie is Randy in this movie. The way they brought him back for this movie after dying in Scream 2 was so unique and so well done. I absolutely adore that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes in Scream, I'd say, in the franchise. I don't know where it ranked, but it's definitely one of my favorites. It's just a very clever and emotional scene, which I dig a lot. I really like how during that scene of Randy like giving them advice for a trilogy that he filmed before he died in 2, and like you got Dewey taking notes and stuff like that, and like that pays off later in 5 because Dewey like uses that knowledge to help the newer generation. Like he literally says some stuff that Randy said in that video, so I like to think that was tied together. But that video is great. I really like how they brought Randy back in a way, because he's my second favorite character in Scream. So the way they did that in 3 is just massive points. But yes, for me, the original trio was good as always. I really liked all their stuff. Of course, like always, I dug them. I don't have really much bad things to say about them. Some negatives I have, though, is the other character members in this. Everybody from like the cast of Stab, all those people, I could care less about like any of them. Like none of them stick with me. I don't think about any of them. I don't even like remember any of their names. There's just no stake when it comes to those characters for me because I just don't care about them. They're just very, very unrememberable. I think they're honestly even more unrememberable than Scream's 4s. So that's a bit of a drag. And I also do not like the Scream 3 killer reveal. I don't care about Roman at all. I don't like his whole story of being the brother of Sidney. I just don't buy it whatsoever. I just don't believe it. Like when he said it, I just feel like that was kind of just slapped in there. Like I just don't buy it at all. And that's a massive negative because that's your bigger reason I'm supposed to care. Like I don't know. I just don't feel like he is the brother of Sidney. I didn't get that across the screen. Their fight they had and stuff like that was great. That was awesome and all. But the whole story he had too of like he like orchestrated Billy and Stu to, I don't know, it's all that stuff's so freaking unneeded. I never think about it, and I will never buy that those two are siblings. I don't care about it at all. I did love though that Dewey got the final kill. He got the final shot on him, so they gave Dewey a final kill. So that is always massive points. Ranking in at number 4 is the new one, Scream 6, and it was tough. I already put this movie above 2 classics for me that I love a lot in a lot of ways, especially 3. It was hard to put this above it, but as of right now, current mindset, I think I gotta put Scream 6 over 3. And right now, I've only seen Scream 6 once, so I need the rewatch. So it could get even higher for me after a rewatch. Who knows? Because when you rewatch a Scream movie, it really opens your eyes on a lot more things because you know the killer is. You can kind of look out for details of like what they do throughout the movie, and you look at it in a different light. So I always like to say there's 2 watches of Scream movies. The first one where you're kind of guessing who it could be and you're focused on that, and the second one you know who it is, but maybe I could appreciate them more. Maybe I could see any little details they did throughout the film that made them the killer and whatever. But Scream 6, god damn, it was a fantastic movie. It was, for me to explain it in a word, is emotional. It was an emotional roller coaster. They tributed all of this past Scream movies, all 5 of them, in an excellent way. They did that so well. I loved everything about it. The way they talked about all the old Ghostface killers. You have so many mentions of old people who were killed. You even had a mention of Sidney that they could have ignored, but they didn't. They gave her an awesome reason of she wasn't going to get involved this time. She was staying away with her family or whatever, which was great. That was fantastic. They didn't have to do that, and they did, and I'm so happy they did, because if they didn't, that would definitely raise a lot of eyebrows, but they didn't. That also leaves her still open for Scream 7 or whenever. So that stuff was great. Also, the entertainment I got from this movie is so high tier. I was so entertained. The 2-hour movie absolutely flew for me. Like, I think Scream 4 is like around 2 hours too, and that movie goes so much slower for me than Scream 6 did. Also, yes, I saw it for the first time, and yes, it was in theaters and stuff like that, so it was a little bit of excitement and all that kind of stuff, but the entertainment and how quick this movie went for me that is eye-opening, and that is a massive positive. The group, the survivors from Scream 5, they named themselves the Core 4 in this movie, were excellent. That was a massive step up from the last movie, and now that makes you appreciate them in Scream 5 a lot more, and you appreciate their beginning origins in Scream 5 to see the family they become in Scream 6. So those 4, goddamn, they stepped it up. I said it in my review of Scream 6, they could literally carry on this franchise without all the classic characters, which is nuts to say. I don't think I'd ever say that, but how good they were in this movie, I could say that for it. I also really liked Gail in this movie. I loved her super tense scene against Ghostface and the call she had on the phone with him. First time she talked to him on the phone, I love the jab she took at him verbally. I love the fight. I love stressing super hard, like, is she actually gonna get killed? It gave me a lot of vibes of how Dewey was killed in 5. I love how every time Dewey was mentioned, she'd be upset, and like little details like that. There's so much positives I could say about Scream 6. I also love the opening. You have Ghostface killing Ghostface in the opening. Like, come on, like that's freaking fantastic. Like, all the times it's Ghostface killing, you know, an innocent person. This time you got a Ghostface killing Ghostface. Like, stellar. Every time I think they can't change it up. Again, they do it somehow. They make its own charm in the opening. The openings are always great, except 4 is a little bit of a letdown for me, but the rest of them are always great. So that was an awesome opening. Even characters like Kirby coming back had a great role in this too. There's a lot of positive. Let's just say it there. I'll stop it there. But Scream 6, the amount of emotion it made me feel, how good they tributed the series and all the films and characters that came before this one, great. And even the new character like Danny, for example, I really liked him too. He was a great character. So they even had someone new that I really liked joining this group. So lots and lots of positives with Scream 6. Some negatives I had though. I gotta talk about the negatives too. It's only fair. I will say the other characters for me personally didn't really stick with me. I didn't really care much for them besides Danny, as like he's like the main one I cared about. The rest didn't really care too much about. Maybe on a rewatch I will, but as of right now with one watch in, I didn't care for them enough. Another thing is the reveal. The reveal at the end is so shaky on me right now. I don't know how to feel about it. I like the fact that there's 3 killers, but I don't know, the two background killers, the 2 lackeys, Richie's siblings, they did not do it for me at all. I didn't care about either of those 2 at all. The main killer out of the 3, the dad of Richie, he was pretty good. I could see him growing on me a lot. He's another new character in this movie that I thought was okay. I could definitely see potential in him growing on me a lot. The fact of it, of being Richie's family, that's not bad. Like, that makes perfect sense, but I don't know. There's just something there that just didn't hit with me. I don't know what it is. Maybe because I love so much of the movie before that part of it. It was kind of a letdown. I don't know what it is. I'm hoping I can kind of grow on me. But as of right now, that's definitely a little bit of a negative. I do like that there was 3. 3 is a difference. I love when they could change it up. I would have preferred it just being 1. I mean, maybe if it was literally only Richie's dad, I think that's all they really needed it to be. But they still changed it up with being 3, so that was a difference, which was cool, and I could appreciate for. But I don't know, that's a bit of a negative. Another bit of a negative for me is the way Chad and Mindy lived. I see everybody talking about this, but I kind of agree with it. They got stabbed like, 7 million times. Like, how do you live through that? Like, I'm not mad because I really like those 2 characters, especially after this movie. They grew on me a lot. But, like, how the hell do you live, like, through that? Like, it's so... I know you have movie magic, you can bend the rules and stuff like that, but... I don't know. Like, that was a little much. Like, that's a little hard to believe. So that was a little bit of a downfall, too. Happy they're alive, but I feel like they could have taken a little less damage there. NYC, the way they used it, I thought was good, but I think it could have been more. I wish I did get, like, at least a shot or 2 of Ghostface in, like, like Manhattan, the way like Jason was, but it's alright. I still think overall it did a much better job than Jason in the city and whatever, because I hate that movie, but still think it was a lot better. But I think Ghostface could have done more in the city. So many positives to this movie. There really is. I cannot name them all. There's a lot of emotion that goes into it. You even had a freaking shrine in this movie that attributed all the past films. Like come on, that's awesome. That is awesome stuff. Like, they did a lot of positive stuff. A lot of things that opened my eyes and like, damn, I didn't expect this movie to be that good. Like, I saw some potential, but like, without Sydney and without Dewey, I'm like, I don't know. But they proved me wrong in a lot of ways. And that is why it ranks in at number 4 for me. Time for the top 3 ranking in. At number 3 is Scream 5. So this movie is a movie that I feel like is underappreciated as hell by everybody. Everybody likes to be so strict on this movie and hate on it and say this and say that and say that it's bad and all these different elements of it. But I think it's freaking awesome. I think it's great. I loved it right away, and I've seen it like 3 times in total, and I can't wait to see it again. I love this movie. The way it had the similarities with the first one, I thought was great. I thought it was fantastic. I really, really, really love the 2 killers you had on this too. I thought Richie and Amber were great. They were great new killers. They had awesome chemistry. The best chemistry between 2 killers since the original Billy and Stu. In my opinion, I think so. Also, in this movie supplied me with the greatest horror death of all time, being Dewey. That death and the emotion you feel from that is freaking unreal. Like, I would not expect to feel that type of emotion from a horror franchise, but I did. Like, that reached some crazy high tier levels. The way it affected me as a fan is nuts. I thought that whole scene and his whole death scene, his whole thing with Ghostface, the fight, everything leading up before that too in this movie, of where Dewey was at in life and how broken he was, and him and Gail's relationship drifting away, all that stuff leading up to his death in this movie. I can't say enough good things about it. That is a barn burner of a death, because Dewey's death was a barn burner. Yeah, I love this movie. I love the vibe of it. I love the music in it. It is also the first movie in 10 years from Scream 4. It's funny, I was just saying that time jump in the first ranking today, but yeah, once again you get that giant time jump, and once again you feel a separation of that time frame from Scream 4, and seeing where they're at now. It's like a massive big change of where Sidney, Dewey, and Gale were at in this movie. I also love Sidney and Gale's roles in this too. Like, Dewey is appreciated by most people from this movie. It's one of his best movies ever, and Scream in the franchise, one of his strongest. He has so much, back up to him, and like how he was introduced in this movie and how he comes and helps the new generation and leading up to his death. Everything was great with him reuniting with Gale. All that stuff was great. But people like to crap on Sidney and Gale in this. I don't agree with that either. I thought they weren't in it as much, but they didn't have to be. You had this new generation being introduced, so they were in it, and they had their important scenes, and scenes that I loved, and I loved them being part of it. And they had their chemistry with the new generation that blended well for me. So I think those 2 were great in it. I really like all the new characters introduced here. Even the character Wes, who gets killed off in this, I thought he was very likable and cool too. He was the son of Judy, who came back in this as well, who was also killed off in this, who also had an awesome tension kill. Very tension-based, of her driving back home and Ghostface getting her. God, there's just so many positives that I could say about this one. Ooh, man, it's... You also have Billy come back in a unique way. He comes back in flashbacks and like mental things that his daughter would see, like of him trying to make her into a killer, and you got this vicious blood in you and this and that. So Billy was brought back in such an awesome way. And like I was saying, like the new cast of characters in this, the ones that survive on the 6, were great. Like, they were so strong, so fantastic. Layers to them. The sister connection in this between Sam and Tara. Like, I don't know. I can't say enough good things. I also really like the opening too. I like the similarities it had with the original. It's just a barn burner of a movie that people tend to sleep on. To be honest with you guys, I really don't think I have a negative to say about Scream 5 at my current mindset. These new characters that were also related to some legacy ones, like Randy, his 2 relatives. I don't know, like, there's just all good stuff to me. This movie was super well done, and it ages better and better and better for me. I know the first watch of it in theater, you kind of have the eyebrow of like, oh, can these killers stand up to the classics and this and that? Like, oh, why isn't it Stu or whatever? But they have aged so well. I mean, I saw potential in them then when I first saw it for the first time, and I liked it, but now I love it. That movie is just, I don't know. I can't say it negative right now. We're getting there. We're getting to the top 2 in the Scream series for me. These 2 ones I adore to death. I love them so much. To me, these 2 films are Scream. They are the prime of Scream. Ranking it at number 2 is Scream 2, and I love this movie. In a lot of ways, I love it just as much as the original. It is such a good sequel. It has so many similar vibes in the original, so much of the similar charm that the original brought. I talked about these two as being my two favorites in the first ranking, and nothing has changed. For me, these two slots are never going to change. They are concrete. They are cemented in my list, in my ranking. And 2 is just another one I could just say so many good things about. I feel like this is the movie where you see these characters, these awesome characters that were introduced in Scream 1. You see a more developed version of them, like Randy, like Sidney, like Gale. I also love the new characters introduced in this. To me, they're just as charmful as any in the original. I really like Derek, for example. Mickey was like the most underrated Ghostface killer of all time for me. So they were great. The new characters introduced in this were great. You really had even Cotton. He's like a new character in a lot of ways. Yes, he was mentioned in the first one and shown for like a second, but he was like a new character in this one. He was also great. Another key aspect I have with Scream 2 is the connection of Dewey and Gale in this. This is prime Dewey and Gale for me. This is what set up these two as such a charmed duo. Like, I really got behind these two in this movie. Even with like the false Dewey death, like that freaking ripped my heart out when I saw it for the first time. I'm like, no way, is he done? I thought he was dead, and I was like, damn, that sucks, because like their chemistry before that scene is like just in one. I mean, yeah, in Scream 1, 2 they build that up, but the way they did it in 2, like, man, like that chemistry was so strong, and like leading up to that scene, that's definitely like a top tier scene for me, very high. So that's like my favorite version of those two in a movie, and it's also, I think, is my favorite single version of Gale in Scream 2 and Dewey. So that's like my favorite version of them as a duo and singular. So that Scream 2 just wins in all cylinders in that regard. Also, I gotta address Randy in this movie. So that he comes back, he survived Scream 1. He comes back, he's my second favorite character in Scream. And I loved him in this movie. Like, this is a little more experienced version, a guy who survived the first one. So he was already smart in the first one, being the movie geek, but now he got his own experience, he's got his own scar, and he was so great in this. I still wish he lived, but I'm happy in a lot of ways because it rips it away from you of like seeing that character live on. Like, I thought Scream took a risk here with killing him off, but it was very impactful. I was shocked when he got pulled into the van and killed. I was like, no way. So like what it made me feel, I just can't go against it. It's far from a negative for me. It was just very ballsy for Scream to do so. But he was awesome in this movie too. Definitely a highlight of Scream 2. Everyone was great. Everyone was firing on all cylinders. Even the Ghostface reveal at the end, I loved. I liked Mrs. Loomis a lot. She was great. Being Billy's mom is definitely shocking for the time. You see that as a clear motive. Hey, you killed my son. That's all she needed to know as a motive. Like, it's the only thing that Sidney needed to know. Like, you killed this woman's son. That's why she's out for you. And then you have a lot of the times the lackeys, like, you don't think of them as much. But Mickey, like, to me, he outshined Mrs. Loomis in this. That guy was fantastic. He was like I said, he is the most underrated Ghostface killer in my opinion. He had a freaking awesome performance here. He goes nuts at the end, and I even like him before that reveal throughout the movie. I know he doesn't have the most screen time ever, but when he's on screen, it's impactful. If you watch what he does, little details that he does, it all builds up to his craziness at the end. Even like scenes like when he's dancing in the cafeteria with Derek and he's rooting on his friend, but meanwhile, he's the one who kills him at the end and shoots him. He's just sadistic. Like, there's even scenes where he's talking to Sidney, like, oh, we're all there for you, and like, it's a lot of stuff. Like, when he was on screen, it meant something. I know he wasn't on it the most, and I know people say, oh, it was obvious he disappeared for X amount of time, but he was a freaking awesome killer. Like, I cannot overlook his craziness in that last act, and like I said, I love everything that came before it. But his stuff in that last act is way too underrated. Way too underrated. I love Scream 2. There's so many positives to say about it. I, once again, have zero negatives about this movie. If I had to pick one, I'd maybe talk about that theater scene. There's like a scene in the theater where Sidney's like practicing a play or something and she's seeing it. But that scene has really grown on me since. So I like that scene now. So I really don't have any negatives to say about Scream 2. It's arguably just as strong as the original for me. So Scream 2 is a go. That leaves one left. Ranking in at number 1 is Scream 1. I don't have much to say about this that I haven't said, and it is just a classic. It is the classic movie. It is the best one. It is perfect. It is a 10 out of 10 critically and personally for me. And it changed the game of horror. There's not much more you could say. It's just a game changer. It's a perfect movie. You have the most unique story. This like specific charm that this movie brought, the difference that it brought than any other horror film did. It separated itself so much, and you just had this cast of characters that were so charmful. All these characters that you want to root for. You got just, it's just so perfect. Like Sidney, Gale, Randy, Dewey, Tatum. Who else did you have in here? You even had like a principal, like Principal Himbry, who was great in his role. You had even Gale's cameraman in the first one was great in his role. Of course, Billy and Stu, best Ghostface killers of all time. Barn burners, fantastic. I've said so many good things about them before. There's nothing negative to say about them. But this cast of characters you introduce in one movie, you are already like so behind all these kind-hearted characters. You're already rooting for them so much. They got such this charm to them. And the fact that they do that in one film, that is unbelievable. Also, the opening scene in Scream 1 is one of the best openings ever. Not even just Scream, but any horror movie. One of the best, and it's also one of the creepiest when it comes to Scream. I remember when I watched that for the first time, it definitely did give me some fright. And it's so unique though. God damn, I can't talk about it enough, but like the way he calls her, Casey, on the phone and then questioning her about horror movies and the trivia, and just, that scene's just brilliant. It's brilliant. The whole movie's brilliant. It really is. Just the way it's perfectly paced too. And then of course, I talk about opening, the ending, like a Billy and Stu and the reveal. 10 out of 10. It's what hooked me on the Scream franchise. Like, of course, everything before this did too. But when I saw that finale, when I saw that reveal and those two and their chemistry, Billy and Stu together, damn, like nothing comes close to those two for me when it comes to Ghostface. Nothing. No one could bring that crazy energy. I feel like everyone since these two in Scream have tried to replicate those two, but it's impossible to do so. Literally, that came out in 1996. We are in 2023 and people still want Stu to come back. They're still talking about this guy. Like, that's the amount of impact that he did in his role in Scream 1, which he didn't even have like the most screen time, and like that speaks volumes right there of how special that character is. Stu is a barn burner for a fact, and that is just another thing that's perfect in this movie. You got something like Randy too in this movie geek. He is literally watching Halloween in this movie. He's giving everybody advice on how to survive a horror movie. I don't know. I could go on and on and on. There's a reason why this movie stuck with me. There's a reason why I was hooked as all hell on this franchise after I saw Scream 1. It's the perfect movie. It is also one of the most recommendable movies I have when it comes to people like, oh, what should I check out? It's always Scream. I'm always saying it. It's also one of the most rewatchable movies ever for me. I could always watch it. It's so easy to watch. Flies every single time, and it gets higher for me every single time I watch it. Hell, it gets higher for me every day in life because I just love the absolute hell out of this movie, the vibe of it, the characters, and everything, the story. Perfect movie. Scream 1 is the GOAT for life. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. That was fun to do. Once again, I'm really happy I did it. Rewrote some history for myself, and we added Scream 6 in there, so that was very cool to see where that ranks for me. I won't rank it again until we get Scream 7 and we see Scream 7, so there won't be another Scream ranking until then, but right now, that's my list. Such a freaking stacked franchise, so hard to say, like, it even still feels wrong for me to say Scream 4 is last, because I still love the hell out of that movie. There's so many aspects of it I love, so it's a tough one, but that's a testament to how special Scream is. If you haven't seen Scream, I freaking highly recommend that series. I recommend it to everybody. Literally, like I was just saying, it's the most recommendable series ever. Like, for me, I'm always going right to it. That and Rocky, when it comes to film franchises, I'm like, get into those two things. There's no bad movies in either of those series, so yeah, that is my current ranking. Let me know down below what you guys agree with, what your own rankings are, what do you disagree with, what are some of your takes, because in a ranking video, I definitely don't cover everything. It's kind of a brief talk about each movie. I feel like I do have to eventually review each of these Scream movies, but right now, that's my list. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Horror 31st.